Some of the other things to look for is you'll notice this little blue screw is a flat screw. It's blued. And then all of the others are domed screws. That's something to look for. You'll either see that this screw is, if this screw is domed, then all the others will be flat. In this case, if it's flat, then all the others should be domed. And that is basically one way to verify originality, make sure that over the years as the watch was being serviced and so forth, that it was kept original. Other things to make sure of, or can basically tell you a little bit about the history of the watch, is the overall quality of the screws themselves. If over time there's a lot of work on the watches and people don't take care when they're servicing them, then they could damage the screws and you'll see damage. In this case, this thing is held up pretty well. The edges, the lines are all clean. There's no damage on the screws, so that's really good. And that's pretty much it. Let me zoom in here, be able to take a better look at this watch. And you'll see where that is right there, the F and S, that is for fast and slow for the regulator, and that screw that you see there is used to adjust the rate of the watch. And but unless you know what you're doing, you don't want to be touching that. Another indicator is if you see watches and that regulator is all the way in either F or S, you know, that could mean, well, this thing probably needs to be serviced, and it hasn't been, and it's either running slow or fast, and people will adjust that regulator to one extreme or another to compensate. So when you're looking for watches, that's something to look for as well. And this one's pretty close to dead center, which is good. Okay. Now I'll take a look at the inside of the case. Another thing is, so with the watch, the dial, the hands, the case, and the movement itself, this entire watch, and typically the movement is what you bought from the factory when you purchased your watch. And then you would buy the case separate and have the movement installed in the case. For this watch, so the bottom line is, over time, you could have your watch in a case that it wasn't originally in. Your watch could also not necessarily have the dial or the hands that it came with. So when you're collecting watches, that's another thing to be aware of, is trying to find it where it's all original. And it's a little bit more difficult than you'd think. But over all these years, there's a lot of chance for things that have been replaced. And it's, you know, it's more typical than finding something all original. This watch, from its best to my knowledge, is all original. And so this year movement was sold with the Model 2 case that you see here. Has the porcelain enamel dial and hands are accurate to this. The second hand sweep and the hour and minute go together. Sometimes you might have a second hand that doesn't match the hour and minute hand. In this case, they're all original. And then as far as the case goes, this is again 10 karat gold filled. I might have said 14 earlier, it's 10. And what we can see, I'll try to get this, is it says Wadsworth, 10 karat gold filled, and it has the patent date, May 22nd, 1926, and then H and a serial number. That patent date, well, first of all, Wadsworth, and then you see the H. H was for Hamilton, okay, which means that this was made by Wadsworth Case Company for Hamilton, and this most likely was cased at the factory when it was sold. The patent date and the horizontal serial number indicate that, again, this is this case came out in the I think it was, I should say that the serial number being horizontal with the patent date was normal for was used in cases that were built from the Model 11 case from 1937 on. So this tells me that's 1937 on as far as the style for this case. And the serial number is 569631. That's a little harder to nail down on production dates as opposed to the watch itself, which you can look up in a database and get the production year that it was made. It's a little bit more difficult, but from what I can tell, it looks like this case was probably built or manufactured in 1941. And so I think that this watch was, while it was built in 1940, it might have been purchased and then cased in 1941. But I'm not 100% sure. But as far as I know, this case seems to be original with this watch movement. Another thing you'll notice is that there are some inscriptions or inscribed numbers here at the top, a few more at the bottom. And what those are, or what this tells you, is that this case was, or this watch was used on the railroad. The railroad had rules around the types of watches allowed to be used by conductors, and one of the things was that the conductor could not set the time of the watch himself. They would have inspectors that would come once a week. They would then check the watch, and it would have to be accurate within 30 seconds in a week, and they would put like a seal on the side and make sure that the railroad conductor did not change the time. And you change the time on these by unscrewing the front bezel. There's a little lever that you pull out, and once that lever is lifted up, you can then change the time. That's known as lever set. And that's why any watch or pocket watch that you pull the stem up on, which was a stem set, was not for railroad use. So if you ever get a pocket watch, please don't try to pull that stem up or that dial up, because you could break it. In most cases, if it was a higher end railroad grade watch, you would unscrew the front bezel and pull out this little lever at this location and set the watch. So when you see inside the case that it has inscriptions like this, that's markings from the railroad over time as they would do service or adjustments to the watch. And this one has several inscriptions indicating that it was used in the railroad. Okay. And so that's pretty much it. Hopefully I'll be able to display a few more of the pocket watches that I've got. Again, this was a recent acquisition. It was the Hamilton 992B. It's a beautiful watch, and so far as she's running perfectly, and I hope I look this good at 78. All right, thank you. Bye.